The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that is happening.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statement.
This is DoubleTap TV.
Welcome to another episode of DoubleTap TV, the show where we talk tech with an accessible point of view. Thank you guys so much for being here each and every single week, as you always do. We appreciate all those emails to feedback at AMI.CA. Keep them coming. If you want to reach out on Twitter, you can do so. It's at DoubleTap Canada. And use the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, because we get to your questions a lot quicker that way. We're talking all about remote support with that tech point of view this week. I am MARC AFLALO with Stephen Scott by my side each and every single week. Stephen, this pandemic has changed the way we live and the way we work. I think there's no doubt about that. But it's also changed the way that we actually get support in our daily lives, support of all kinds. What has that meant for you as a member of the blind community?
Well, at the start of the pandemic, Mark, I think it's fair to say it was a bit of a handbrake turn moment for all of us, right? I mean, all of a sudden, for me, my usual supports were away at home. I couldn't ask a neighbour or a family member to pop over if there was a problem. My cleaner couldn't come in to keep on top of the household chores I need assistance with. Shopping was all online all of a sudden. It was a massive change. And at work, the challenges continued. No longer did I have a support worker, a physical person in the office next to me, assisting me with my day-to-day work tasks. I had none of that.
So how did you actually overcome that? Because it's not one of these things where you can just snap your fingers and say, hey, let's fix this.
Well, that's right. And when you're blind or you're disabled, I think you tend to be very good at adapting because you have to be in life. And I guess I had to just apply that here. I had to very quickly adapt and adopt new solutions to old problems. So let's take cleaning, for example, right? The reason we have a cleaner at home here is because we can't tell if something's particularly clean or dirty. So we have, for example, cleaned the bathroom within an inch of its life, only to miss certain things or find out it was actually perfectly clean in the first place and we didn't need to do it. So, I started getting into these assistance apps like Be My Eyes, where a volunteer can help me, look over an area and tell me what they thought and whether it was actually dirty or not. I know it doesn't sound very appealing, Mark, but, trust me, when you're blind, you get very little privacy in your life. That applies to a lot of disabled people, actually.
Okay, but this is a tech show, so we got to spin it a little bit for our audience, right? So aside from your toilet bowl and your kitchen sink, another task, how did tech help in those instances?
Well, in terms of shopping, for example, we had to get used to using all the apps and relying on them a lot more. There was very little ability to speak to staff on the phone, so we had to hope that what we ordered arrived, because of course there were challenges with deliveries, and of course it was what we wanted in the first place. One hilarious moment after another would follow with things like ordering shampoo, and we would think, for example, it was a regular bottle of shampoo, but then find it was only a travel size, tiny little thing. So those kind of things would happen, and that's the joys of online shopping. And we were doing a lot of this already. This wasn't new to us, but we didn't rely on it the way that we do now, and that was the major change. And then, of course, there was work. How could I have someone sighted work alongside me when no one was allowed to be in the house? Well, that's where the app and service we're going to talk about today actually comes in. It's called Aira, AIRA. It is a remote support service for anyone who needs visual support, but it does a lot more than that. I could wax on about it, Mark, if I'm honest, because I love it. But, we do have two guests this week with us who can tell us a lot more.
Yes, we do. And those two guests include the Director of Customer Relations at Aira, that app you just mentioned, Janine Stanley. She's standing by, and she's going to talk to us about, of course, that experience, why that app came to be, and how it helps people in their daily lives. And we're going to actually get a first-person point of view, because there's a neighbor of mine, not literally a neighbor, but he lives in Quebec, Leo Bissonnette, from Beaconsfield, which is just a couple kilometers away, who's going to talk about his experiences of actually using the app in his daily life. So, stick around. This is DoubleTap TV. He is Stephen Scott. I am MARC AFLALO. Again, I know you have an opinion at home, so let us know. Feedback at AMI.CA is the email address. On Twitter at DoubleTap Canada. And don't forget the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. And of course, we're also on all other social media, Facebook, and, just look for DoubleTap online. We take a quick break and come back right here on DoubleTap TV.
For more great DoubleTap TV content, visit AMI.CA/DoubleTap. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to this edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here each and every single week. I am Mark AFLALO with Stephen Scott by my side live from Glasgow, Scotland. It's amazing that we still do this, Stephen. We're talking this week about how apps like Aira can help provide remote support to people who are blind or partially sighted and maybe don't have the support of a sighted partner or a family member or a friend who can just pop on by, especially when you're thinking of a pandemic, right?
Yeah, and of course there are a ton of us out there who want to do things on our own terms, Mark, and that's what this app is there to help as well.
Yes, it is, absolutely. So let's dig into this a bit with Janine Stanley. She's a Director of Customer Relations at Aira, who joins us now. Janine, what is Aira?
Aira is a visual interpreting service, and that basically means that we are the eyes through the camera of your smartphone, so we can describe anything that you can see through that camera.
Janine, that does a great job at summarizing the app pretty well. Clearly what you guys do is extremely important, but I can imagine that in a time of a pandemic, like this past 2 years almost, it brings up a much greater need for your service. Have you found a big shift in that?
Absolutely. We did shift. We went from a lot of calls about travel and airports to a lot more calls involving the computer. And now that's our number one task, is looking at things online, helping people with inaccessible websites, things like that. And that was really crucial during this time last year.
We should say it is a paid-for service, but there is a free element. You don't have to pay necessarily to use Aira, is that right?
Sure, you can get free usage through our access partners, and those are businesses or organizations that have paid for the service that you use while using their products or at their locations. For example, let's see, in Canada, you've got 3 airports that are access locations. And then we have free 5 minutes, so you can get 1 free 5-minute call a day. And if you want more, we do have the plans that you can pay for.
Janine, I want to press you on the point that Stephen brought up before, which is there are free apps out there like Be My Eyes. So when it comes to a market like this, what makes your app different? How does it stand out from an app like that?
The security, the professional training, the quality of the video and audio that you're getting. And that can be debated, I realize, but those are the big differences. But it's primarily the professionalism of the agents that really is the big difference. Now, the volunteers are wonderful, don't get me wrong, and there are some great ones out there, but volunteer services are inherently difficult. If we're having a hard economic times or other things, some people joined Be My Eyes from the pandemic, and that was wonderful, and other people joined it, and it wasn't so wonderful. So it's a tough one, and we screen our agents, we bond them financially, so, there are all sorts of safety measures put in place for people.
Well, that's the thing. When I'm using the service, I'm trusting the agent with a lot of personal information, whether it's a bank statement, a credit card, or even full access to my computer remotely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that you can't do with, say, Be My Eyes and some of the other volunteer apps. You can't give them access to your computer. Well, I suppose you could, but would you? I don't know. That would be, there are no safeguards from within the app or from within the system for that kind of access. So you're kind of taking it at your own risk, where we have all kinds of safeguards built in.
Janine, I know we normally talk about this stuff off the top of an interview, but I'm curious, how did Aira as a business actually start? How did it come about?
Oh my. Well, the story was that Suman Kanaganti, who is our founder, he happened to meet a blind person. Basically, I think they were on an airplane and they were just talking about software and things like that. And he was noticing what some of the barriers were. This was obviously the person he met was very successful, had a business, was professional, had everything going, but then he would run into lack of access to information. And Suman, being the visionary that he is, said, wait a minute, we can solve this.
The pandemic has brought about a new need, I guess. Initially, for me, I thought Aira was a personal support service, which I would use for all those things we talked about. But I've also come to realize that it's a huge support in my business world as well. What's Aira doing to address that need, Janine, especially as it looks like working from home is going to continue? Good news, of course, for a lot of disabled people. So is remote support in the workplace where your head is at as a business?
That is right where we are. And employment is a great topic because we tackle that in two ways. First of all, the public facing way. If you go to, say, a grocery store chain, etc., you can definitely get that assistance as a customer, which helps not only you, but also helps the store in being able to use its staff properly. And then we have the employment situation where you are the employee, and Aira is helping you get your job done, so you don't have to wait for a coworker, you don't have to depend on a support worker. You can just go in and do that job. And right now we have one particular company, an international company, that has employees in positions that we never thought blind people would be in a warehouse setting, in a fulfillment center setting, that we never thought they would be in. And we've got everybody from top-level stockbrokers down to people who work in the industries for the blind type workshops that use Aira and that have it as part of their accommodations for business. So that's really what we want to expand on, is let's get people into these jobs and let's get them upwardly mobile and have Aira there as a natural thing for employers.
Wait, so you're saying this could actually allow blind and partially sighted people to take on job roles they may never have even considered before?
Sure. It's become a very visual job with the digital, adaptations for radio, but you would be really surprised at some of the jobs that folks have with, excuse me, with Aira, and one of them is working at fast food restaurants. Everybody has had that first job, that job that you just say, oh, it's one of those jobs that everybody's had. Well, a lot of blind people don't get that chance to start their work career with an employment history at just, sort of a grunt type job. And with Aira, you can certainly do that job, have that experience, get that socialization, as it were, into the world of work, and then move on. And it really, I hate this word, but it really normalizes people and puts you into the cultural experience that everybody else has in the work world.
Yes, I hate the word normal as well, but it is, about making us feel part of society, and that is normal. Looking at future tech, Janine, where is it all going? We were all very excited when Aira launched smart glasses initially to go along with your service. You stopped that, though. Is the tech just not there yet to offer that as an option?
The technology was the barrier, and we decided to make our own glasses because at the time nobody was making them. That is a really heavily capitalized kind of thing to do. And it was costing us a lot of money. Plus, once your technology goes out of date, we were using Android phones as the connection device. And although that was fine for a while, you all know how quickly Android changes, and it's very quickly in some cases. And those phones just became obsolete very, very quickly. And then people had trouble with connections and things like that. We would love for a commercial set of smart glasses to be available at an affordable price with robust enough connectivity, which is part of the issue because we take a fair amount of bandwidth when we're connecting to the audio and video and the VPN and things like that. We would love a pair of glasses to be able to handle that.
Okay, so we've talked about all the wonderful things Aira agents actually do. Now, Stephen mentioned earlier that he used Be My Eyes to check whether his bathroom was clean or not. So it got me thinking, what will Aira agents not do? Are there limits?
Good question. Well, I'm going to direct you to our terms of service on our webpage, but they will not help you view adult content. They will not interact with you if you are not clothed. And you would be surprised how many people think, oh, they're never going to see me. I'm just holding the phone. They're not going to see. But things reflect. And so, yes, they can see. And the public restrooms. Those are probably our big three that we do not do.
Thank you, Janine, and there's so much more to come on this week's edition of Double Tap TV. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to have a real first-person point of view. A neighbor of mine, a couple kilometers away in Quebec, in Beaconsfield, Leo Bissonnette, he is standing by, and he's going to tell us all about his uses for Aira after we take a quick break. He is Stephen Scott from Glasgow, Scotland. I am Mark AFLALO in Montreal. This is Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.CA/DoubleTap. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Double Tap TV, talking all about the way tech can help support you, especially when you need that support. I am Mark AFLALO with Stephen Scott by my side. If you guys want to get involved, it's feedback at AMI.CA. On Twitter, we are at Double Tap Canada with the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. And of course, on our social media, just look up doubletap.online. Stephen, we've got someone standing by.
We do, and it is someone from your neck of the woods, Mark. Leo Bissonnette is with us from Quebec in Montreal, and he is here to share his views on the remote support service provided by Aira. That is AIRA. Leo, great to have you with us here. How did you come to start using the service?
Well, the beginning of my story is a little bit of a sad start. In 2018, my wife was in declining health, and sadly, she died in 2019. But at that time, she had spotted an article about Aira, and she was passionate that I get it. And that started me down the trail. I initially started with the glasses and had some phenomenal experiences. And I'll share one quick anecdotal story with you. After I got the glasses and had the package all set up, I went down to the basement, and I had an agent come on, and it was my first use of it. And he said, scan around the basement with the glasses. And we did that. And as we were scanning, he spotted in the corner a Lego model of a Saturn V rocket. You have to understand that my son-in-law loves Lego and models. Well, I was impressed that the fellow knew that that was a Saturn V. And that began sort of a love affair with Aira.
Now, there are other apps out there that don't cost any money. I'm thinking about artificial intelligence apps like Seeing AI or other similar services that use humans, such as Be My Eyes. Have you tried any of those out as an alternative to Aira?
I've tried others, but I guess because of the confidence level on the security side around some of the things that I have had to do subsequently with documents, that extra level of comfort with the security that an agent is available to me, reading my documents, helping me with my material. There is certainly nothing wrong with other services like Be My Eyes. I by no means do I discredit any of those, but for me, it's that comfort level and the security.
Leo, you told us before you came on that you're blind with a little bit of light perception. So I wonder, considering what you and the entire world has gone through over the past year and a half, how's an app like this been able to make you more independent? Has it helped you?
You know, just the idea of being able to go into a grocery store when needed with the agent support to be able to navigate the 2-meter distancing factor that we've had to live with. That's been helpful, you know, to have that confidence, having someone who is clearly trained to help with that kind of experience.
Leo, not everybody out there is a smartphone user, believe it or not. There are people out there that still have clamshell flip phones, but you clearly are a smartphone user. But I imagine many watching this might be keen to try out a service like this despite their lack of experience with a smartphone. What would your advice to them be?
Well, I guess early in the game, I came into the Apple platform and got used to having an iPhone. And certainly there's no question about it. You know, the smartphones with a piece of glass is quite a thing to get used to. But I think if we can empower people, and I do some volunteer work encouraging people, helping them get to use their technology, it's by sharing some tips on actually how to work the phone, and maybe in some ways being a mentor to say, it works for me now, I can help you get to that point. We'll do it in stages at your pace.
Now, you know, using any service for the first time could be daunting, especially when you have no idea, you know, what's going to happen. You're kind of letting a stranger into your life or into your home in this case. You know, even if it's over a phone, it can be a little bit more discouraging. What would you say is a good way to start using Aira for the first time?
I think if you can say, this is the tool that empowers you to do something, even a simple thing in your own home, in your own environment, start with something small. Are you trying to navigate what's in your cupboard in terms of cans and boxes and so forth? Start there. Start with something you need to do. And I think, if I may, Stephen, talk about how several organizations in Canada here, the Canadian Council of the Blind and so forth, have worked with partnerships with Aira to develop a partnership with special pricing plans, promotional plans. It's not cheap for some people. Ira recognized that, but certainly I was able to work with Janine to bring these type of reduced promotional plans to 2 organizations. And I think that if we can get more Canadians to use it, it'll be an experience that'll make it more Canadian.
Leo, it's great to have you on. Thank you for being a very friendly neighbor, even though we've never met personally. But it was great to have your thoughts on this extremely interesting app that's called Aira. Stephen Scott, you use it every single day. What's your kind of wrap-up words about this app and whether or not people should go out and try it?
I think the great thing about this app is you do have that free 5-minute call per day that you can make, which I think is a great way to get used to the app. And you know, the thing for me was always trying to find out what ways I would use it, how I would use it. But I'd also say have apps like Be My Eyes around as well, have Seeing AI. You know, this is just one of the many apps in the toolbox that I think we need to have. And it is a great one to have. And if you like it, then of course you can pay for it. And that gives you access to more time with the agents. And as we start to emerge out and about again and become more independent again, this app can really shine.
There are so many apps out there and so many developers who are working on different solutions to help the community, and we're going to be profiling a lot of these companies throughout this season. It's kind of our little mandate this year to actually showcase the spotlight on some of these smaller developers that are working their little butts off to try and get some really cool technology in your hands. So we hope to bring you more of these on this season of Double Tap TV. On behalf of Stephen Scott and our 2 guests this week, thank you guys so much for being here. Again, if you want to get involved, as always, please email us. It's feedback@AMI.CA. Again, feedback@AMI.CA. And of course, on Twitter, reach out @DoubleTapCanada and use that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll speak to you on the next edition of Double Tap TV.
Hosted by Mark AFLALO and Stephen Scott. Editing Jordan Steves and Mark AFLALO. Voiceover Anna VOCINO. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Production Kara Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Errington. Copyright 2021 Accessible Media Inc.